Hi everyone, welcome back to the Phoenix Rise podcast. I am so excited for this episode because I've been waiting for this moment since we last had a podcast episode on Kyla's podcast. I was like, come on over. So Kyla, please do introduce yourself before I just start talking and then we're not going to be able to stop.
Okay. My name is Kyla Gagnon. I live in Canada. I'm on the West Coast. We were just off camera, off recording, talking about the sweet little island that I live on. Yeah, I work in the realms of somatics and embodiment and breathwork and feminine empowerment and plant medicine and all the juicy bits. And I just am so fucking excited to work with women and like be even just a sliver of the piece of their like reclamation of self. They're like, oh, that remembering of who they are. So I am so excited to be talking to you.
Oh my God, I love it. So we're just going to dive in. We're going to free flow because that's how we roll over here. Unconventional, unhinged, unfiltered, all of the U's. And do you know what you just said? And I have to say, since we first met and you said the word reclaimed, and I was like, something implanted in me. And I've been using it so much now because I'm just like, it is such a powerful word, isn't it? And it's one of those words that I think, I don't know, it's just like, it didn't even enter my orbit. And then you said it and I was like, oh, like that just ties in like everything that I talk about. And why don't we dive into that a minute? So like, how did that all come about for you?
That's a really fun question because I don't know if even a year ago I had that word in part of my vocabulary. And if I was to, as you know, when we're in things, it's hard to see we're in them. And it said when we're done, we look back and we're like, oh, holy cow, that makes so much sense. So if I look at like the last 20 years of my life, I go into story on this in my podcast, so I don't need to go deep into story. If anyone's curious, you can listen to episode 1 of my podcast, but talks about my story of like my whole adult life being so hyper disconnected from myself in all ways and being totally unaware of that. Like I thought I was totally, completely self-connected, self-aware, all the things, almost like gold starring myself and feeling really like proud of how together and, you know, with it I was, you know, I wasn't a flailing mess. I was together, quote unquote, together, but in a really self-protected, shallow way where I was very surface level. And that kept me like fine. It kept me, you know, fine is the word and good enough are the words, and like safe, comfortable. And for me, my journey of like really meeting myself started with a plant medicine journey. It started with psilocybin in like 2018. And prior to that, I was wildly judgmental of anyone using any substance, anything. I was so on my high horse about it. Oh, wow. I don't care if you're using CBD for pain. I was in judgment about it. Like, and it was my aunt who was like a second mom to me, who I think is just the coolest woman. And I'm actually going to have her on my podcast because I think the conversation will be wild. We should do a 3-way podcast. You should be on the call. You're going to love her. Anyway. She came to one of my yoga classes and was like, we went for brunch after. It was right before Christmas one year. And she said, Kyla, I've been sitting with mushrooms a lot. And right there, I was like, pardon me. And she's like, I have never had deeper, more connected meditations. I have never felt more clear. I have never felt more aligned. And at that point, she was probably 65. Oh my God. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I have the person you're going to sit with. I'm going to like, you just have to do this. So I did an overnight journey with this woman. And it was the first time that I was like confronted with the depths of myself that I didn't know I had. And then after that, it was breathwork. I landed in a breathwork session.
So you went from mushrooms to breathwork.
Yeah, I did. No, and like a year apart, like there's probably a year in between. But those were the two like most impactful experiences for me that showed me really clearly, and like I couldn't argue it. The power that I held as a being, and the power I held as a woman, and the wisdom that I've been holding, and all like it it was like overwhelming to discover this whole other aspect of myself. Like it really, really highlighted how superficial and surface level I had kept everything. And so when breathwork came into my life, I at that point had a personal training company that just myself, I guess it's a company, personal training business that I had ran for like 15 years. And I found breathwork and I totally burned that business to the ground. And I was like, no more. That's not it. That's keeping me superficial. That's surface level. We're going deep. And I went headfirst, full body into somatics and breathwork training and trauma training and then like launched this new version of myself. And that was a reclamation. I was like, oh, because this feels like the way I describe the work that I do now and the life that I live now, this feels like home. This feels like what I've done for lifetimes. And so for me, and it felt like a remembering, like when I was in these experiences, it wasn't like, oh my gosh, what is this? It was like, oh my gosh, thank you for the reminder. And so to me, I was like, this is a reminder. This is a reclamation of what I've always known. And so now my mission is like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, sweet girl, like, just remember what you've always known.
Yeah. Oh my God. My mind is just like so many angles. I want to take this.
We can talk fast. Go.
Oh my God. But like, do you know what? The first thing that is literally coming to my mind is like how similar our journeys are. Like different, but very similar, because same. I was like so superficial, so kind of surface level. I don't want to say the word shallow, but like it was very superficial. Yeah. And it was very like, you know, you think that you've got it all together. Like you feel like you are living the kind of life that is good, right? You know, and same as you, I had a business, a corporate business. So I was like doing all the things, living a good life, being an entrepreneur. And it was kind of, I mean, I was in an abusive relationship, but park that part. The rest of it was like, the rest of it, I was like, yeah, I got my shit together, you know, like I'm good. And for me, it was when I left that relationship and I kind of had my spiritual awakening, like my tower moment, all that stuff. I didn't burn my business to the ground. I very nearly did. But I then started a crystal business like a year after my spiritual awakening, and the crystals were all really new to me. And I just kind of got called into that. Very quickly found that industry, or I don't say that industry, but like the part of the industry that I had found myself in it was like so, what's the word? So judgmental. It was like very toxic. And I felt very out of place because I had come in with this ambitious woman, you know, big dreams, big goals, big aspirations. I like 3D stuff, right? I like nice things. I like having money. You know, all of that stuff. And then I found myself in kind of, in a air quotes, spiritual world. I wouldn't necessarily say they were spiritual people, but the people that I found myself around were very much like, we don't do that over here. Like, you know, it's like, leave all that. If you want to come over here, like, we don't do that. And so I found myself really like torn. And I was like, okay, well, I kind of want to do this, but I want this as well. And so it took me a little minute, right, to find my power, like my reclamation, and to be like, no, actually, do you know what? Like, this is the path that I'm going to walk. Like, I don't really give a fuck what you guys think. Like, I'm doing this my way. And anyway, long story short, because I'm kind of going on a tangent, but I ended up burning that business to the ground after it like went super successful. Because I burnt out, basically. I was just like doing all the things. But then my reclamation, I really feel, was like the beginning of this year. Like really, truthfully. And it was just such a... It's so funny because it literally just started from leaving my old Instagram account. Like just... Wow. I know. Like the smallest thing, right? But like just... It was kind of like... the compound effect. And that was kind of like the final piece of the puzzle that was just waiting for the dominoes to fall. And it's like when I made that final kind of commitment, that final like cutting of the ties, and I came into this new space and I was just like, I'm not here for that anymore. Like I am being who I've always wanted to be, like unapologetically. Like I'm not apologizing for who I am and for what I believe in like any fucking longer. Like, no, thank you. If you don't like it, get the fuck out of my space. And it's like, that was my reclamation, right? And I just, that's why when we connected, and I know we both, it's just like such a kind of, you know, that like electricity. It's like you just feel that kind of vibration and that frequency, and you just know that they're your people. And it's just when you're on that kind of level where you just connect. And I don't know, I've gone on a complete tangent, but that was what came to me when you were talking.
I love your tangent, and I'm going to go on one from your tangent, if I may. Yeah. And I have beef with the spiritual world, and I just want to speak to this because you spoke to it a little bit of how that industry of like getting into crystals and energetics and spirituality and all of that beautiful stuff. Oh gosh, the like cultiness of it and the like, look at me, I'm spiritual, gives me a hard no in my body. So here's my thing. I fell victim to that, right? To be spiritual, you had to look a certain way, talk a certain way, you had to wear certain things.
Yes.
I almost didn't get my yoga teacher training certification because I thought in order to be a yoga teacher, I should have sat in ashrams in India for 25 years. I like should wear a turban and teach Kundalini. Like I held myself back, and now I work in what I deem to be the spiritual realms and spiritual communities. And the truth of the matter, and something that I want everyone to remember, is we don't have to do anything to be spiritual. We don't have to say things to be spiritual. We exist. We are spiritual beings. So like you could be living on the streets. I mean, we live in very different places. In like the slummy parts of the streets, you could live on the street without a home. You don't have a quote unquote spiritual practice. You're not wearing the things. You're a spiritual being. You could have the most intense, beautiful connection to spirit, which I believe is just to the depth of yourself. Yeah. You know, so if you're in a container, here's something. If you are in a container, anyone listening, where the leaders or facilitators make you feel like you need to be, do, say, act differently, that's not your container. Get the fuck out. Yeah. And you can swear and be spiritual. I also want to say that, like, you can just exist. You can be sexy. You can be a nudist. You can swear. You can use psychedelics. You can do whatever you want to do because you are a spiritual being. So I just want to lay that out there.
Oh my God. I love that. I love that so much. And I resonate with that so much because that was all the things, right? That was all the things that I felt like I was being boxed into. And me being me, like I've always been rebellious. I was just like, nah, like I don't want this. But there is such stigma in that kind of industry, in that field. And it's like people preaching that they're whiter than white, you know, that they are like saints. And it's like you said, like we are spiritual beings, like regardless of what we do or we don't do, that doesn't change. Like you could commit the worst crimes in the world and you're still a spiritual being. You obviously are not spiritually connected necessarily, but you're still a spiritual being, and you're still, I believe, this might trigger some people, but I believe you are actually living out your purpose. You know, you are learning the lessons that you're here to learn. And
I couldn't agree more.
Half of that is different, right?
I could not agree more. I also, on top of that, this also might trigger, you're still so worthy of love. Like you're still so worthy of all of it. Okay, my tangent's not done. If anyone is like, if anyone is preaching that they are, again, like holier than holier, whiter than white, if they are like a guru, if they are I'll even use the word healer. Someone really attaches to the term healer.
Yes.
Anyone who is actually of that level, like someone who is actually like fully enlightened and undisturbed by the things around them, would never need to tell you that they're enlightened. They just wouldn't need to tell you. Yeah. Just period. Their beingness speaks for it. They don't have to prove it. So if someone's telling you how great they are and why you should follow them and lead, you know, let them be their leader, your guru, again, like just note that as a highly orange, if not red flag.
Yeah, 100%. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference between people kind of facilitating, like, you know, women's circles or like safe spaces where you feel like you can really, you know, be yourself, whatever that might look like in that situation. But that's completely, like, I love that. And I think there's such a need for that. And that's so
I facilitate them. Like I facilitate them. But the difference is there isn't the language of like, I am better than you.
Yeah.
I will teach you everything I know because you absolutely for sure don't know it. I will teach you how to be like me. Like it's the language that, and not everyone's like that. My gosh, please. There are incredible facilitators and incredible space holders. But if we're talking about the like kind of dark side of the spiritual world, that would be one of that is it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the last tangent that I'm going to give on that topic, you know what? Do you know what? It's a topic that needs to be talked about, right? And I think if anyone's going to talk about it, if anyone's going to be brave, it's going to be us too. So, you know,
let's hear it.
Whatever. But also, right, money, right? Getting work.
Yeah.
So how many times I cannot tell you. Again, beginning of my kind of spiritual entrepreneurial journey. So when I started being, and funnily enough, I was thinking that I actually called myself a soulpreneur at the time as well, because I was trying to fit into this kind of like box almost. I was like, okay, well, this is kind of how people talk over here and all this kind of stuff. And anyway, I used to do TikTok quite a bit. I don't really do it so much anymore. But I was starting to talk about being in this new spiritual world, and also around the stigma and the shame around money, right? And how, I mean, that's always been a big topic for me because I've always loved money. I've always been very much like for money and empowering other women to have it, right? Like have it. And that triggers a lot of fucking people. So when you tie that with spirituality, oh my fucking God, you may as well just like jump into the furnace. It's like, you know, everyone comes to you. And I just want to say to anyone listening, if you are struggling with the fact that you want to be, or you class yourself as spiritual and you want to be successful, so you want 3D and 5D, right? You want success and you want spirituality, like you want it all. And everyone's telling you can't because money is the root of all evil. You know, there's too much bad in the world for anyone to have that much money. It's unethical and all of this crap. And it's like, okay, firstly, your soul came to this 3D fucking world. It came to a 3D world to experience a 3D life. We came here for a reason. Money was created for a reason so that we experience it. That's my belief, okay? I'm just putting that out there. And secondly, how did anyone ever change the world? By staying poor.
Thank you. You're not serving the poor by being as poor as them. And like money in the hands of good people changes the world.
Yes. Oh my God, I say that all the time. Yeah.
And so, money in the hands of shitty people is going to do some shitty things. Yes, of course. And so it's almost our duty.
Yes.
Like, I think it's our duty as like good heart-centered humans to earn a lot of money and do a lot of good.
Exactly. It's like, that's how you make a change. That's how you impact people. That's how you create more wealth by allowing yourself to have wealth so that you empower others to have wealth, other good humans like you, who then that's how the ripple effect, you know, starts, right?
Like it would be different if we still lived in a time of bartering, but we don't.
Yeah.
You can't just like give someone more rosemary for their tea in exchange for their healing work or counseling work or medical work. That's not a thing here, at least where I live in North America. And it's money. That is our current exchange. And so like it or not, and you know what? Money isn't good or bad. It's literally, it's neutral. It's an energy. It kind of doesn't even exist. It's numbers on the screen. So it's no different than the flowers in your yard or the shirt that you're wearing. Like it's just an energy. So you make of it what you want to make of it. But
yes. Oh my God, yes.
if I don't have clothes in my closet, I'm going to walk around naked. I'm going to be quite cold. I'm probably going to get arrested. So I need more clothes. And if I don't have money in my bank account, well, I'm not going to eat. Then I'm going to starve. I'm not going to have a roof over my head. Then I'm living on the streets. And then what good am I? So I need money. And I want money. And I want to do good things with it. Like good. Yeah, anyway. Wow. I could go on a tangent about this too.
I love it so much. Right. Okay. I want it. Right. Okay. So that's our spiritual and money tangent done. I want to dive into psychedelics.
Yes, please.
No, but I'm coming from a space. I've never done them. Okay. So never done them. Now I'm intrigued by this conversation because obviously it's something I see a lot. A lot of people talk about it. Again, especially like in the spiritual world, right? It's kind of like there's a lot
very trendy.
Yes. Especially like plant medicine. Yeah. So the first thing coming to my mind is definitely ego, and it's definitely like that kind of, like we were talking about earlier, right? It's like that perception that we have of people that do stuff like that. And I kind of have a thought that's going through my mind right now. So my ex, who was the abusive relationship, like he would do a lot of drugs. A lot of drugs, not necessarily psychedelics, but he would do like a lot of coke, and like it was there were a lot of drugs. And so that also kind of put up even more of a thing for me of like, why can't you just be in it, like, you know, like in your kind of normal space? Like, why do you have to escape? So I'm just kind of putting out there what other people might be thinking. So I would just love you just to dive into it a bit.
I love that. I'm really glad you brought that up because it's, as with everything, there's multiple sides to it. So for me, so psilocybin is specifically the plant medicine that I work with, psilocybin, and have experienced a couple of other ones, but that's like, it's an ally for me. It is like a great teacher and such an ally. I'll use that. And it's an intelligence. Like psilocybin is ancient, and there's stories of it being used in societies like 40,000 years, like ancient. And it's a plant. And so right there, like it's not a drug. It's a plant intelligence, just like oregano. Oregano is an intelligence. Oregano is a healer. Oregano is antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal.
Like rosemary and yeah.
They're all plants. Those are plant medicines. Rosemary is a plant medicine. Thyme is a plant medicine. Oregano is a plant medicine. It's just not a psychoactive plant medicine. Cacao, plant medicine. It's just not psychoactive. Psilocybin, plant medicine with psychoactive qualities. Now, what the psychoactive qualities have, and I'm just going to speak for myself because that's all someone can do. The intelligence that comes through. So as an example, I'll just explain my first journey. I'll explain my first journey because it was incredibly beautiful. So the woman that I was sitting with, it was an overnight ceremony, and we were in this really beautiful like yurt in the middle of a forest. And did we talk about this when you were on the podcast? Okay, I haven't had this conversation with you. So with psilocybin, it's really common that you get crazy visuals, like everything, like sometimes like the walls might move, people's faces might start to like go all kind of weird and wonky and slimy. And so we're in this beautiful yurt, and I was there. My purpose, my intention was to connect deeper to spirit and to meet my spirit guides, because I had felt income comparison. Thank you, spiritual world. People were talking about their guides, and I work with this guide and I work with this guide, and I see this and I hear this and all of these gifts that these people seem to have. I was like, I want to meet my spirit guides. Like, I want to be more connected with spirit. I want to hear the things that they're hearing. I was really seeking to have all of these same spiritual connections that other people had. Okay. That was my intention going into the medicine. So the medicine's starting to sink into my body. It takes about 45 minutes usually to like get into the system. And the woman facilitating was drumming at the time and singing, and it was so beautiful. And what was happening for me is my eyes were closed, and out of the bottom left corner inside, like behind my closed eyes, at the bottom left corner, it was almost like a big movie theater curtain. And bottom left corner, it was like this little cartoony, like not gremlin, but like little kind of
Oh my
like
God.
like little shit disturber was rolling the curtain up and poking his head out to be like, boo. And it was funny. And I was trying not to giggle. And in my mind, I was like, shh, like, go away. Like, not now. Like, we're not there yet. No, 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 no. And he kept being really playful and curious and like flirty and mischievous. And it was giving me the giggles. And that playful energy state. So that visual then like evolved into not so much circus, but like kind of circus energy and lots of like really funny creatures and like funny roller coasters and just like hilarious things happening and not scary whatsoever.
Okay.
But in my mind, I was like, I'm here for serious business. Like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. Like, go away. I'm here to connect to spirit. And oh my gosh, I went for what felt like an eternity. It was maybe, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes. And I had this epiphany where I was like, oh my God, Kylie, you're so serious, because I was always so serious. I grew up really fast. I became an entrepreneur right away. Like everything was serious. And it was this invitation. Spirit was like, you need to play. You need more play in your life. You need more fun. You need more ease. You need more childlike behavior in your life. And so that was the first kind of like, oh my gosh, I do. And then I just allowed myself to be in this play energy. And then I had to pee, and the bathroom was outside. And I was like, oh God, okay, I have to go into the forest. So the bathroom was this 3-walled outhouse, this wooden 3-walled outhouse where when you're sitting on the potty, you're looking into the forest, which is quite magical.
Yeah.
Unless you're on mushrooms. So I'm getting really nervous. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. It's going to be so insane. So I walk myself out there. I'm like kind of keeping my eyes, that like half closed you do in the middle of the night when you're trying not to wake up. So I like get to the outhouse and I sit down, and then I open my eyes, and the forest was just the forest and everything was totally normal. And I had this second aha where it was like, hey, Kyla, this is an inside job. This has nothing to do with anything outside of you. This is not about anything outside of you. This is inside. This is for you. And that was another like, oh, of course. Oh my God. Okay. So I went back inside and like really just like allowed myself to like be in this new playful childlike state. And one more thing. I mean, the journey was like 5 hours long, so I don't need to go into all of it. The woman who was facilitating at one point, now this woman is like, I don't think she's human. She's so incredibly connected. She can like talk to entities and spirit and plants. And like, she is so incredible to be around. And she came up to me and sat beside me so lovingly. And she said, there's someone here for you. I think it's an ancestor. I'm not sure, but there's someone here for you. And she's asking you to sing. And I was like, oh, she's got the wrong person. Like, I don't sing. And she said, no, I know. I think that's why she's asking you to, because you don't. And then she said, you don't, the human her, not spirit now. She's like, look, like, this is just a message for you. You can do with it what you want. You can you can hum, but she wants you to sing. You can go outside if you want, if that makes you feel better, but you're really being invited to sing. And I was so mortified. Like, I am not a performer. I'm very shy. I definitely don't sing. I don't have a good voice, like all of the things. So I sat there, and my first story was like, you always choose the easy way. You always back out when it gets hard. You always choose the easy way. This is why you're here. Stay. And so I started with humming, and then I went into oming, and then this fucking angelic voice came out of me. And I was just like,
I'm literally like crying. This is so insane.
I have chills. I was just singing. It wasn't words, but it was like, sound. And I was singing and singing and singing, and it felt so good. And when I finished singing, I looked up, and the yurt that we were in had like a round skylight in the center, and it was nighttime, so I could just see stars. And I looked up and I just laughed and laughed and laughed at how like beautiful life is and how simple it can be and how hard we make it. And then my head came down and my chin came to my chest and I sobbed and I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed for all of the times, for all of the people who don't know this feeling of it gets to be good and it's easy and we're here and we're love, we're light, like we're spirits. And like the texture of the air in the room after I sang was like crystal. Like crystal. And Megan, the woman who was facilitating and her support, were standing across from me and she was just smudging and smiling. And she was like, that was the most beautiful thing. And she's just like wafting the energy around. And we just all were like, oh, whoa, wow. I have goosebumps all over my body right now.
Yeah.
And that was the first moment I made contact with my voice. And anyone who does listen to my first episode on my podcast, I talk about that because breathwork was then the next time I found my voice. And that was the piece where I was like, I'm teaching this. I am bringing women to their voice. I don't care what you share with your voice, but I trust that when you come to your voice in a good way, you'll share good things. And so that was my entry into plant medicine. So for me, I was like, hell yes. 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 Whatever you have to teach me. Yes.
Wow.
And, and so I now, I sit with psilocybin maybe once or twice a year in a big way like that. I'll microdose sometimes, but I co-lead retreats. I co-lead 3-night retreats with 2 other wonderful facilitators where we bring people in for 2 nights of medicine. And then we end with breathwork and integration on the 3rd day. And even being on the facilitation side and not being deep in the medicine is like, whoa, profound.
Yeah.
Profound to see the intelligence of that medicine working through people. Like the mycelium, it's under the soil. It's under our feet everywhere we go. And it's for miles and miles and miles. And its intention, its purpose is connection, right? It brings nutrients to the trees. It brings nutrients to the plants. It's sending messages from one tree to another. Like it's a communicator. It's a connector. And so it helps us to like reconnect different wires in our system. I had someone explain this in the most beautiful way that, we get stuck in our looped patterns, our looped thoughts, and we just get like, wow, just like in the same pattern forever. And if we think of a ski mountain, a ski hill, a really popular track, and the carvings are there because people have skied this track the same way. And those are sort of our thought patterns, our thought tracks. And psilocybin acts as if it's a snowfall, a fresh snowfall over the tracks. And now you have the opportunity, you have this opportunity to make new tracks.
Wow.
And I just, I think it's just incredible. The piece about working with psychedelics in a intentional way, because there's a very different experience if you're just sort of disrespecting it and using it just for, I'm going to a party, so I'm going to do whatever. It's a very different energy to like, I'm going to sit in intention. I'm going to work with this medicine. I'm going to pray to this medicine. I'm in community. It's a very different experience. And lost my train of thought with that. Anyways, if it's important, it'll come back to me.
Oh my God. That's so amazing. And it's really great to actually hear that from someone who's been kind of where I am, I would say, like been that kind of, like on the outside looking in, being all kind of like judgy, and then going to the other side and actually opening up to it. So it's really, really interesting. And I'm always like in 2 minds, I never say never because, it's a very close mindset, but also, I don't know what will happen, but it's very intriguing to hear the experiences that you've had and obviously what women in your world get as well. That's just so incredible. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's very special. It's very special.
I love it.
Oh, there was something. Oh, okay. The flip side to this, because you were speaking about that thought you had to your ex-partner of like, why can't you just like be in your life? Okay. So there comes a time where self-reflection is, are you sitting with medicine every weekend? Are you like always, is it like alcohol for you? Are you always leaving are you leaving the real life to like go back into these sort of like dream spaces? Because the purpose of, in my mind, the purpose of sitting with these medicines is to receive the information to then integrate it into your life. And so if you're not taking the time after your experience to then let it land in your body, let it really land in your life and integrate it and implement it and weave these new teachings in, then there's no point. Then you're just numbing. Then you're just disassociating. The intention is to connect with that wisdom and bring it into your life. So someone who's sitting in ceremony all the time, my question is like, how are you integrating this? What is the purpose? Are you integrating, or are you just going to ceremony and sitting with medicine because that's trendy and cool and escaping?
Oh, that is so great. I really love that. That's like a massive thing, I think, for anyone listening who's maybe like either toying with the idea or seeing people around them like in that world. I think that's so powerful. Like what you just said then, like using it for that connection. But then knowing, again, like we said earlier, we came to this 3D world to experience the 3D world. So it's like, it's almost like from what I'm getting from what you're saying is like you're opening the doorway that we can't see normal, like every day, right? So when you're in those ceremonies, like you're opening the doorway, you're gaining access to what is the other side. But then our job as humans is to shut that doorway and bring back what we found into our everyday life. That's like the point of it, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Exclamation mark. Yes.
Oh my God. This has been like the craziest podcast ever. We've talked about like money, shame, and psychedelics. And I can't even remember what we spoke about in the beginning.
The shadow side of spirituality.
Yes. I think
this is a good episode.
I think we might have to call it that.
I think so too.
I love it. Oh my God. Right. Kyla, where can everyone find you? I'll put all the show notes. I'll put all the links in the show notes below. I can never say that right. But please tell everyone. Yeah.
Okay. So most of the time I'm on Instagram at @thesacred_essentials. My website's there too. I feel like most people head to Instagram before websites, but my website's thesacredessentials.net. And yeah, both of those places. You can access me both of those places.
I love it. And we'll put all the details in the show notes below. Make sure you go and check Kyla out because she's an absolute badass. I just freaking love you so much.
Love you.
Thank you everyone for listening. And until next time, I shall see you soon.
Ta-ta.